Hi, everybody. Welcome to Monday. Sorry, my shot is crooked. Momo and I have been having a bit of a war over my desk this week, and he keeps moving my main monitor, and I couldn't get it framed properly. It's a work in progress. So that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is my thoughts about Netflix's recent outrage-driven earned media marketing strategy in the wake of its Q4 earnings report on Friday. And its forecast for Q1 2022, which caused Netflix's stock to plunge 23%. I hope you like this wonky content. I much prefer dealing with these issues this way as opposed to just covering drama and spitting nonsense about stuff that doesn't matter. So if you agree with me and you prefer this approach, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K. So, because you may have noticed, I didn't cover the Cowboy Bebop live action show. I didn't talk about it. I didn't do a review of it because I've seen 2/3 of an episode and that's it. And I haven't done anything on second season of The Witcher show because I haven't watched it yet. Because both those shows were mired in drama with, prominent people fighting with the internet in some way. And I am still recovering from the whole Masters of the Universe Revelations thing. I am not getting into another one of those. No way. And so I'm not surprised that Netflix has not hit targets because I can't be the only one that is growing tired of the drama. So here, if you don't believe me, here's the Yahoo Finance article on it. We got, here's Friday. It's apparently the biggest drop since 2014. 23%. 23.48%. Because not only did they miss subscriber targets by a bit, apparently that's not the big thing. The big thing is that they're expecting only 2.5 million additional subscribers in Q1 2022. Q1 2021, last Q1, they picked up 3.98 million subscribers. So that's a big drop in growth. It may be because they've raised their prices and they're waiting for people to adjust. They think they might lose some people because of that. I don't know. They're still the biggest player in streaming by a lot. They've got about 222 million users compared to 175 million users for Amazon and all the Disney services, Hulu, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus. They combined, the Disney services have 1.79 million subscribers. But Disney hasn't been on the scene. Disney Plus hasn't been on the scene that long. So, and sports subscribers are their own thing. Brands love sports because people still watch sports live. So that's, ESPN is very, very lucrative for Disney. But you'll notice that, Disney, when people are fighting with the internet, they don't like that. As opposed to Netflix fighting with the internet, Netflix does. And, you could argue that, some people will say, well, it was because of Gina Carano's politics. I only think that's part of it, based on my experiences in media. It seems more that internally they wanted her to do some things that I don't necessarily agree with, and she didn't do them. And, when your bosses are saying, do this, and you say no, in any job, your job is at risk. I don't think Disney handled the Gina Carano thing great, but you'll notice there hasn't been another thing like Gina Carano. Whereas Netflix, it's one thing after another. And, the Cowboy Bebop thing, the actress posted one video and that was it, right? Pretty much. But, the Kevin Smith thing with Masters Universe Revelations went on for a while. And the Lauren Hissrich thing, I'm not even touching on that because it's like, what was she thinking? They're wading into fights. They're picking fights they cannot win. There's no way. It's getting down in the muck with a pig. The problem is the pig likes it. The only benefit to Netflix is the controversy. Doesn't matter how bad the creator looks, doesn't matter how people complain, how woke things are, or anything like that. It's just the controversy, right? It's not like Disney doesn't do its fair share of woke, in its shows. But they're not fighting. The actress who plays Echo on Hawkeye isn't out there fighting with people on the internet, and she's like I don't know what the terminology for somebody who, is deaf and does not speak now. I understand you don't use the term you used to use, but she uses American Sign Language. And she's Native American, and she's got an artificial limb. And apparently the actress just happened to have that who checked all the other boxes. She's really good. I think part of the reason that people have been okay with that, Hawkeye is taking longer to catch on. I highly recommend it. I think it's a lot of fun, but it's a less popular Marvel character, so it needed some time, right? But I also think that part of the reason people weren't more outraged about that is she's actually good in the part, right? She has a really good intensity, and she does the stunts well. So, and that's basically Hawkeye. It's fun. And it's stunts, and they actually make the arrows cool. They finally made Hawkeye cool. Finally. And the deliberately rotten musical number was amazing in my books. And there's a cute dog in it. I will not share any more because apparently those are spoilers, even though they were all over the internet. But that's clearly very different. You cannot say Disney doesn't do diversity and inclusion in the things they do, right? They just don't fight with people over it. As opposed to Netflix, who knowingly does things that are changes, or they are big swings in terms of presentation of the material, right? Doing Cowboy Bebop live action alone, I just have no interest in it because the animation style was a big part of it for me. But as soon as you change Faith's outfit, some people are going to get upset. You know that going in, right? You better know that going in. Of course they knew that going in. So why fight with people? You knew people were going to scream. Unless you're baiting people, to try to stir up controversy, to cause more awareness for your show. You know people are going to upset. Let them be upset. Let people have opinions about something you do that was knowingly controversial, whether it should be or not. Same with some of the changes they made with Witcher Season 2. Now, some of the changes with Witcher Season 2 were a direct result of just the age that they made Ciri and certain other things, but they've changed major character relationships, this, that, and the next thing. And I mean, that show, Season 1, was a Yennefer of Vengerberg show called The Witcher. And I don't know why they did that. I think that people would have watched a Yennefer of Vengerberg show because it's The Witcher, but at least people would have gone in going, I know what to expect here. A lot of the complaints about Witcher season 2 is Henry Cavill's sidelined. I have my thoughts on that, but that's not the point. The point is people are allowed to have their individual thoughts on that and whether they like it or don't like it. And they're allowed to express that on social media, within reason. I don't see what it serves other than stirring up drama to have the showrunner of that show fighting with people on the internet, especially not the particular people she decided to pick fights with. And I am not getting into that any more than that because it is a big pile of poop. I've touched it enough even by reference to it here. Because that will derail this whole thing into what people think about that whole thing. And it got freaking insane. And she couldn't win. She said, she swung one way and one faction of the culture war was mad at her. She swung the other way. The other faction of the culture war was mad at her. And of course it was. Anybody with any awareness of how internets work would know that the way she approached that was a losing proposition. Because you can please no one. Trying to take the middle of the road approach, she did. The best thing to do is say nothing. Let people have the opinions they want of your work. Explain your decisions through traditional media interviews, the way Disney does. Disney has a model that works. Now, okay, Disney's Disney. But Disney, they've had some bumps. They've had some, shows I think were kind of misses, but that's everything. Not everything comes together, especially during COVID, especially in these metaverse, omnibus offerings where a streaming service flows into a movie, flows into another streaming thing, flows into a movie. If something doesn't click, they can't hold anything back without gumming up the whole works, right? I mean, even the Black Widow delay because of COVID was a big freaking deal, right? But Disney does the rarely complain, and explain within reason, to borrow from the royal family approach. Very different from Netflix. I hope we can all agree it's very different from Netflix, because if we don't agree on that, we are living in two different realities, and that's a little bit scary. So the big question is the outrage bait driving the drop in subscribers in Netflix? Or is the outrage bait a response to slowing subscribers? Because, I mean, it's been all of a sudden, right? I mean, Masters Universe was like this summer or something like that. And then it, wham, Cowboy Bebop, wham, Witcher. If I were to guess between the two, I would say that the outrage bait is a response to declining subscribers. Though I think that the revised down Q1 2022 outlook is a recognition that the outrage bait didn't work. Now, we'll see. We'll see if they continue to do this, or will they change their direction? Because, I mean, Netflix's real, surprise hits have been the non-English language, like the international programming, like Squid Game and Money Heist, that people just sort of discovered. There was no big push behind it. It was just, oh my God, did you see this thing on Netflix? And all right, fine, you have to have other tentpoles to remind people to turn on Netflix. But I enjoy those, international offerings. And I'm like, this looks good. Let's try it. Way more than I'm enjoying we're going to take nostalgia properties or things that are popular in other media like video games and anime, and we're going to change them and then seem perplexed why people some people aren't happy with the changes, or we're going to grandstand on it, or right? Because there just isn't the same. There were a lot of hot takes written about Squid Game, but there isn't the same seeming deliberateness to fight with the most vocal corners of, the existing fan bases for these properties. And like I said, I don't think this is a get woke, go broke thing. I think this is a more, we're going broke, let's leverage woke. Because we know people will fight about that, and that will get us attention. However, I repeat, I truly believe that approach by Netflix backfired. It backfired just based on the people I've talked to. I don't know that it's a smart play to use nostalgia properties and make them exceedingly divisive. Like, do little things or like change one thing, right? Change one thing. Don't change a ton of things. It's just too far to go. Masters of the Universe was a unique thing in that there's two distinct eras of fan base for those shows, because there's the people who watched in the 80s but didn't watch the original 2000s, revamp, and then there's the people who came on during that revamp who are old enough to have been alive to watch the show in the 80s, or they were like 2 years old, right? I happened to fall into that earlier cohort. I was a child of the 80s, so I was born in the 70s. I think even people who enjoyed the show like I did enjoyed it less because of the screaming, because the screaming was unpleasant. And I know this because I stayed away from Cowboy Bebop. I watched 2/3 of an episode and actually thought visually it looked kind of cheap. Like, I saw what they were doing with the color palettes and stuff like that, but I just didn't like the way it looked. It was too video, not filmic enough. And obviously that didn't do terribly well because it got canceled. And I just have not touched The Witcher Season 2. Because, they had to know going in that the Witcher fan base is, we'll say jumpy, we'll say excitable from the beginning. And putting a female showrunner on that and starting to make pretty major changes to, I think, plots. People are like, okay, you got to change things for television, but core aspects of character relationships, that is gonna get people talking. And if you're deliberately making those changes, if you're deliberately shifting the focus, if you're adding details of backstory that aren't in the original thing, people are going to have opinions. You have to let people have those opinions. I think there is a difference, and I'm going to be very careful about how I say this, and I'm sure I will be misconstrued anyway, but there is a big difference in telling your story as an artist, and then if you want to put out a thing about why you did it, that's one thing, right? I find it interesting when, like, Kojima puts up crazy stuff about why he did things in his games, or, I love reading Alan Moore interviews, because Alan Moore has taken some big controversial swings in his career, and I find his reasoning really, really interesting. But, you don't see Kojima and Alan Moore on the internet directly fighting with people. The way, even the She-Ra creators didn't directly fight with people, though they did podcasts. And the worst thing you can do as a creator is, and I've learned this over years, is talk too much about why you did something. Because most people don't care. Most people liked it or didn't like it. And explaining why you did it is not going to change where they fall in the like-dislike paradigm, right? And it's kind of ridiculous that people have so much of their identity tied up in media now. But that is what 2 generations of people have been told they're supposed to feel, right? That we've done all this improvement so that people can see themselves in media, right? As opposed to when I grew up, where, you know, in terms of girl stuff made for girls, there was Barbie, and at one point in the mid-'80s, they made a friend for Barbie who happened to have brown hair, but the ideal woman, according to media, was a blonde white woman, right? And then She-Ra comes out, and she's a blonde white woman. Like, so many of us were excluded from characters that looked like us in media, that, you know, and toys and stuff like that, that we're like, we're going to find other things in these characters to relate to. It almost seems like this push towards, hey, we're going to put characters that look like a bunch of different people, but then have a bunch of very flat characterizations. We're going to train people to think that the only thing that matters in media is characters that check particular boxes, not characters that people connect to regardless of their physical appearance, but because of their actual, like, personality characteristics or talents or whatever. And I'm not saying don't do both, right? I'm just saying people should be able to feel represented or connected to characters that don't look like them or aren't the same gender as them, or, you know, so on and so forth, without it being this big, you're appropriating something, right? Like, that's, people like what they like. It's not that conscious. For some people it is, and it's that small majority of people who actually are sort of grifters that wreck it for everybody else. But media has been driven into this blind alley by cultural criticism, and the only way out of it is, I think, to just keep making stuff and stop fighting with people. More shows like Hawkeye, please. Less shows with showrunners fighting fans. And I mean, was there big coordinated pushes on those shows on Twitter? Yeah, I don't believe that people are just out there with, like, the GIFs and stuff like that, just regular people. There's paid influencers, there's paid social media people out there hyping these shows. But they're just saying, hey, isn't it great? Not fighting with people. I really, really think that fighting with people was the wrong call. And I think that marketers took the wrong lessons from some of these phenomenon. Because much like a superhero movie sequel is often a reflection of the last movie in the series. I mean, let's face it, Captain Marvel in part made $1 billion because it was the movie wedged in between Infinity War and Endgame, right? And, you know, Marvel had just come off a streak of really good movies, like one after the other, consistently good. Same with the Avengers. You know, the first Avengers movie didn't make that much money because it was the greatest movie ever made. I still maintain it was exceptionally mediocre. It was all that payoff from really, really great groundwork laid down by movies that were modest hits, but were very well received. People who saw them liked them, right? Netflix is kind of going the opposite. People are burned out from the last fight, so they don't engage in the current one. And because they want to stay far, far away from the current fight, they don't even watch the show. And that might be combined with a price increase, combined with, a pivot to more original programming, so on and so forth, whatever. I think that might be why the forecast is so revised down. We'll see. What do you guys think? Is this revised Netflix forecast an indication that they recognize that their outrage bait marketing didn't work? I'm very interested to see your thoughts. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.